the day after that successful referendum, she will declare Alberta as a sovereign nation. And the U.S., we know this firsthand because we were there talking with them on April the 22nd, will acknowledge Alberta as a sovereign nation, and we've done it!
Hey everybody, PJ here. Looks like it's finally Friday. Hope you all had a good week and an even better weekend ahead. In today's report, we're going to be commenting on a federal government document obtained by Juno News revealing that the Canadian government is already hiring a legal team to challenge a future referendum on Alberta independence. The Liberal government is hiring the same lawyer that was involved during the Quebec referendum. This tells you everything you need to know about how serious the Canadian government is taking the possibility of Alberta leaving. We'll also be providing commentary regarding a recent independence rally hosted by Rebel News, where Dr. Dennis Modry from the Alberta Prosperity Project explains the process that will follow a successful referendum vote, including negotiations with other provinces and the federal government, what happens if negotiations fail, and how the government of the United States has confirmed to the APP that they would recognize an independent Alberta after a successful referendum, making Alberta a de facto, brand new, and independent nation on that day. We also react to a recent Alberta independence ad, which will get a laugh or two out of you. Let's get into it.
As of today, Canada's 2035 gas vehicle ban officially begins.
Good thing we separated from that mess.
Should have moved to Alberta.
So no more gas trucks out east starting today.
Let them figure out how to haul grain with a Tesla.
I heard Ottawa's gas ban starts today.
Not our problem anymore.
Imagine making it mandatory to have an electric vehicle in a country where temperatures can average 30 to 40 degrees below zero during the winter months. Alberta will laugh about it when it separates, or we will suffer with the rest of Canada if we don't get our independence. Now, if you've made it this far and you're enjoying the report, please do me a solid and hit that subscribe button. It's free and it helps me continue bringing you these videos. If you've already subscribed, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Now back to the video.
While I'm not a constitutional legal expert who knows the ins and outs of secessionist movement history within Canada, it's evident from these documents, these emails, that the federal government is sort of preparing a response to what could be a successful referendum.
Heavily redacted documents show that Ottawa is seeking constitutional advice on Alberta's independence from a top Crown lawyer who successfully argued in the Supreme Court that Quebec had no unilateral right to leave Canada after the narrow 1995 separation vote. In response to a Freedom of Information and Privacy Act request by True North, the Department of Justice released legal correspondence on Alberta's proposed independence referendum. In response to a Freedom of Information and Privacy Act request by True North, the Department of Justice released legal correspondence on Alberta's proposed independence referendum. Citing solicitor-client privilege, a vast majority of the document's contents were blacked out, except for the names of those consulted. Correspondence dated from May 15th to May 23rd contains emails between the Department of Justice's Senior General Counsel on Constitutional Law, Warren J. Newman, Senior General Counsel on Indigenous Rights and Relations, Uzma Isinula, and Crown Indigenous Relations Senior Director, John Topping. Despite the Liberal government downplaying the magnitude of the Alberta independence movement, the documents indicate that Ottawa may be making contingency plans to constitutionally challenge a successful referendum, possibly at the Supreme Court level, by employing arguments of Indigenous rights. Newman acted as co-counsel for the Attorney General of Canada in 1998 when the Liberal government under Jean Chrétien shut down Quebec secessionist arguments in the Supreme Court of Canada. The court had agreed with the Crown's arguments in its reference re-secession of Quebec judgment. The court ruled that Quebec could not legally secede from Canada on its own because the Canadian Constitution does not allow it, and that secession could only happen through negotiations involving all provinces and the federal government. So, Cosmin, after the last election, we've seen a lot of a resurgence of this sentiment of Alberta separatism.
This is when you know the Canadian government is starting to get really worried about Alberta independence. They literally went and hired a top lawyer who previously worked against Quebec independence during the 90s when they had their last referendum. The document obtained by Juno News doesn't show much information, as the government blacked out most of it as usual. You can tell they don't want any transparency when it comes to this. At an event hosted by Rebel News, where the theme was educating the public in attendance about Alberta's fight for independence, Dr. Dennis Modry from the Alberta Prosperity Project explained what the process would look like post-successful referendum. Watch.
So this is going to be the challenge, and it's going to be all hands on deck. The petition, somewhat difficult, but you know what? That is doable. We're already there in terms of the numbers, as I said. So everything that we're doing follows the Clarity Act, right? This is the legal pathway for a province to leave Canada and become a sovereign nation. But I want to make one point very clear with respect to the Clarity Act. There's a section in the preamble that says that a successful referendum obligates the federal government and the other provinces to negotiate in good faith, but negotiations might lead to secession. Well, what does that mean? That also means that it might not lead to secession. Well, what does that mean? If it doesn't lead to secession, only two outcomes. Number one, Alberta gets everything that it wants in the negotiations. However, Section 4A of the Clarity Act says you can't have a referendum if the purpose, 4A and B, if the purpose is to negotiate a better deal, right? So it can only mean then, when it says negotiations might lead to secession, and the corollary is might not lead to secession, means one thing, and that is negotiations have failed, and the federal government and the other provinces are not willing to open the Constitution and change it to remove Alberta from the Constitution. There's another solution to that. And when you look at the way the Supreme Court analyzed the whole issue of a unilateral declaration of independence, there's section 154 and 155 in that analysis. This is really important to understand, is that if a region is subjugated, dominated, exploited, and their aspirations of self-determination are not met, that region has the right to have a referendum on sovereignty, and it is political legitimacy, and it becomes legal legitimacy when other nations acknowledge that Alberta has had a successful referendum, and if the Premier has the guts to do it, the day after that successful referendum, she will declare Alberta as a sovereign nation. And the U.S., we know this firsthand because we were there talking with them on April the 22nd, will acknowledge Alberta as a sovereign nation, and we've done it. Thank you.
All right, thanks for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Special thanks to those of you who have donated to this project. It is much appreciated, and it helps me continue making videos. See you on the next one. Peace.